Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Eye-On-Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz, as you can see by the name underneath on the screen. My guest tonight is someone who has been here a number of times over the last several years, but she's here in a slightly different capacity, kind of still related, but sort of not. Please welcome Carmen Leal to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for pronouncing my name correctly.
Of course.
Yeah.
So Carmen is, if you've seen her on the show before, you will know that she previously was known as Carmen Scott, and I'm going to have her explain what the difference is here. But Carmen was the former public relations and marketing person for new PAWSibilities dog rescue here in town, which sadly, as anyone who lives around here probably knows, they had to close their doors late last year after 10 years of placing thousands and thousands of dogs into deserving, loving, forever homes. And but, you know, Carmen is, she's never one to let grass grow under her feet or snow build up around her boots. So she has been off on other adventures, one of which she's going to tell us about tonight. You have written this book, and I'm going to hold it up. It's called I Chose You, and the subtitle is Imperfectly Perfect Rescue Dogs and Their Humans. And so we're going to talk about the book tonight. We're going to talk about other things that you've been up to.
Very good.
But first, explain briefly the difference between the two names.
So, again, thank you for having me.
Of course.
This is actually my 11th book.
Oh, wow.
And I said I will never write another book. 10 years later, I had a reason to write a book. But the other 10 books were written under my maiden name, Carmen Leal. So it didn't make any sense to not build on where I already was.
Yeah.
So there was no divorce, there was no ugliness. We just
remarriage.
No, so we've done that before, which I always said.
Well,
I would
not
never
this
do
time,
that.
though.
This time, no, I think this one's going to stick. So that is the name change, and that's the reason why.
All right. So, you know, you also, as part of this, I guess, you formed a publishing company, and the book is published through your publishing company. And the publishing company is Wagaway Publishing, LLC, and it says at the top of the book, it's too small to really see if I hold it up, but it's Wagaway Tales Book 1.
Book 1, yeah.
So anyway, just tell us a little, very brief reason why New PAWSibilities closed their doors.
Money, money, money. I mean,
it's always the story, isn't
before COVID, we had some grants that we were lined up to do. Mm-hmm. We had a full slate of volunteers. We had events lined up, and then it crashed, which it did for everybody. But the thing about New Paws is the owner decided when he started it, if I have daycare, boarding, grooming, those are profit centers. I will always have an income to feed into the rescue, which I thought was a very smart way to do it. But when you shut it down, you no longer have profit centers. And when it opened up, then
just look at me and not the cameras.
Okay.
I was trying
so professional.
I was trying to be subtle about it, but
so sorry about that. So,
because the lights aren't working, and I don't know which camera is on and which one isn't.
So when they opened up again, if you're not working, or you're not working from home, you're not doing daycare. If you're not traveling, and no one's traveling, you're not doing boarding.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, that income, and then all the grant providers are like, wait, we're not doing grants. We don't know what's going on. Once you lose that footing as a nonprofit that really depends upon that, then the vet bills, the vet cost.
Everything
so it
piles
was a money thing.
Even just utilities to keep the place running.
And that rent was
$2,500.
And you have the utilities, and you have staff, and everything snowballs.
Yeah.
And as worthy a cause, and no one thinks it's more worthy than all of us sitting at this table in this room, at some point you've got to be able to say, I can't do this anymore. I can't go deeper and deeper and deeper in debt.
Yeah.
Which is what was happening.
Yeah.
So I had about a month warning. But prior to that, in January of last year, actually even before that, I said, Jim, I hate to see this struggle. And I said I'd never write a book, but I'm really good at what I do. And if I write a book, every quarter I will have money to give. That was the only reason I did the book. Is so
Well,
I could
I'm
give.
glad that you did it. I'm sorry that they closed their doors and that was the impetus
Yeah.
for doing this. But it's a wonderful book, and
you. Things work out the way they should.
Yeah.
And I've already been able to give to 2 other shelters, Nina Animal Shelter. I was able to do a signing before they closed and give Jim a nice chunk against his vet bills. So it's not that I'm not giving, I'm giving in different ways.
Sure.
And, life doesn't always turn out the way you thought, but you can still be on that path.
That's very, very
Yes.
true. So, what else have you been doing besides writing and promoting the book?
Writing and promoting. Well, I'm working on book 2. So the book 2 is really fun. I don't have a title yet.
And that's the one that you want me to write something
Yes,
for,
and
right?
I want your viewers to. So
right,
what's
okay.
unique about this book? People ask
This
me,
book.
this book, and all the books in the series. Here's my very favorite review so far. A guy came up to me here in Oshkosh, and he said, "I don't like dogs," and I said, "Okay, that's fine. You don't need to like dogs." And he goes, "But I wanted to support you as a local author." And I said, "Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that." And he said, "So I bought a book. And I decided to read it." And he goes, "And you know what? Your book doesn't even suck."
No!
That just tickled me. And he said, "No, it's a really good book. But it's not about dogs. It's not a dog book." And I said, "It's not." He goes, "It's about you." And he's not wrong. So
Well, some of it's about you.
I tell that this book is kind of like a mini memoir
Yes.
with Chicken Soup for the Dog Lover's Soul
Yeah.
all wrapped together.
It is.
So it is definitely a dog book, but there's a lot of things that are not dog, but I connect them.
Right. And, it's kind of like what shelters and what rescues do, right? It's not just finding homes for dogs. It's helping to complete families.
That's exactly
and it's
what it
about
is.
the people who are adopting the dogs. And so and that's what the book is about. This is a very, I think, interesting book in the way you have done it. So you've got chapters, but within those chapters, you have short stories, some of which you've written, some which other folks have written, some that you and them, you've sort of dovetailed pieces together. And so because it's written that way, it's a very easy read and a fast read. Some people, when they read a book, they want to sit down and, they'll say, okay, I want to read 5 chapters while I'm sitting here. Well, some of those chapters can be very long. This is a book that I found you can say, okay, I'm going to read a chapter or 2. Well, but it goes so fast that you read more chapters.
And that was the goal. What I did is I said, my story is one story. I've never had a dog die. That was my dog. My dog was not a puppy. He was 14 months. I've never gone through having a senior dog. I've never had a dog with arthritis or 3 legs. What can I say? Could I write a book? Of course I could. About one dog. He's awesome. But I think for
Coconut
me,
is his name.
His name is Coconut, and I got him from New Paws.
Yes.
And as you know my story, I was in a terrible car wreck back home in Hawaii and ended up with a traumatic brain injury. And I was horribly suicidal. And I had no reason to live. And my doctor back home kept saying, "Get a dog." And I said, "I would never get a dog. I don't do dogs. We had dogs growing up. I don't do dogs." And he kept saying it and saying it. And that I had level 10 headaches. I've had a headache for almost 8 years. Some days are better. Some days aren't. We got here. Note to the wise, do not move from Hawaii to Wisconsin in March. It was gloomy. It was dark. It was horrible. It was horrible. And by October, I realized I can't do a winter. I can't do it. So I went and I found New Paws because they're the only ones open. Jim said, "What do you want in a dog?" I said, "I want a dog that doesn't lick, doesn't jump, doesn't bark, It doesn't get on furniture, doesn't get my bed, and it's not annoying. And he said, you don't want a dog, do you? I said, nope. He goes, I have the perfect dog. And he brought out this little nothing of a dog, 12 pounds underweight, we find out. Not a flashy dog like a husky and the blue eyes. It was just a little brown dog. Mm-hmm. That dog came and sat right in front of me. I dare you not to love me. And I went home with a dog. And I realized, really, that dog saved my life. And so...
And you've saved his.
And I've saved his. And during the time I was there with New Paws, I started volunteering and helping with events and bios and all those things. I did the math as we knew we were closing. New Paws rescued well over 12,000 dogs in 10 years.
Wow.
And I was responsible for every word on that website, which we created, and Facebook and all the events. I became the face, and I was involved in 6,500 rescues.
Wow.
And as a tribute to Coconut is how this book started, is I would not be alive. I would certainly not be functioning if I was alive. I would not use my gifts. And I need to give back to Coconut and to New Paws. And so that's my story, but if my story is echoed in this book.
It is.
And it's so much fun capturing the stories. There, I think, are 8 people from Oshkosh.
Oh, okay.
In this book that got their
I was going to ask you about
that
that.
got their dog from New PAWSibilities.
All right.
But I also got it from all over the country. And so
Sure.
I'm looking for stories, as you asked the next book. The working title is I Still Choose You. And it is about senior humans. Now, we're going to broaden that category, and we're going to go with the 55 and older, because senior living is 55. So it's anybody who is 55 or older who has a rescue dog. Because there's different reasons to get a dog
Sure.
when you have little kids versus when you're 55 and older. So that's the new project.
All right.
Yeah.
So people who are 55 and older, who have a dog, had a dog, and something happened, whatever the case may be, they should contact you at the websites.
Yeah, the website.
I think we can put them up here. There we go.
Yeah.
Yours and Wagaway Publishing. And they are also, she is also on Facebook. Is it under Carmen Leal, or is it?
It's Facebook hashtag, well, not hashtag, Rescue More Dogs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's, and
All
what
right.
that is.
Okay, that's good to know.
I do stories and I do memes and I
All right.
curate articles. So it's an education
I'm
site.
just, so people know how to look for you on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I brought that up.
I am too.
So there are songs, and there's a lot I want to get to tonight.
All
so we're going to
go fast.
There's 5 pages here.
Wow.
So there are songs, there's music tied in with each story in this book. So tell us a little about how and don't spoil the surprise toward the end about the special song. Don't talk about that right now. But how is the music tied in with the chapters?
My family is all musical, and I sing with the Oshkosh Chamber Singers. I've always sung. I had a full scholarship for vocal music. Sadly, I had my thyroid removed as a freshman, and I couldn't sing, and switched it to academic. But music is my life. And similar to dogs get us through those hard times. Dogs get us through the happy times. So does music.
Yeah, that's very true.
And that's the reason I need, when you're writing a book, you need a connective tissue.
Right.
You need something that gives it life. And for me, music is what has gotten me through hard times in life. And so they're not songs about dogs, not a one of them.
That's true.
They're just songs that resonate with me, that dovetail with the principle I'm trying to teach, because each chapter really is standalone.
They are, and I think that's also, Carmen, why it's such an easy read. So in the last paragraph of the introduction, you wrote, and I'm quoting here, Dick Clark said, another quote, "Music is the soundtrack of your life," unquote. And then you say he wasn't wrong about that. But if you've picked up this book, there's an excellent chance that dogs are another refrain that runs through your life. So beautifully put, and it absolutely is, in fact, the truth.
Now, I'll give you a sneak peek. Book 2,
Yes.
The Connecting Tissue, are movies.
You told me that.
So
Yes.
that's fun. I've been doing lots of movies.
Yes. So, there are a lot of references in this book to new PAWSibilities, and of course, that's why I wanted to talk briefly about why they closed, so that people who didn't know, because this show is seen around the country on YouTube, or it can be, I should say. I don't know how many people around the country watch it, but so that way, if someone's thinking, well, why is it talking about a place that's closed?
Yeah.
That's how that happened.
And
you
we
were
did
writing this when they were still open.
And I did
so.
have to do some edits. I had to call my editor and say, stop the presses, okay, give me it back. And I said, we're not wiping them out of the book. We can't do the book, but we are going to do the ending. We're going to tell their story. And,
Yes.
and a little, so that's in there.
Yeah. So the foreword of this book is is written by R. Riddell Weatherwax. Now, Weatherwax is and I know this because I'm like a TV, movie, music, trivia freak. I don't know everything, but I do know a lot of things. And one of the programs I watched when I was a kid was Lassie. Well, and people don't always pay attention to credits on shows and movies. I do. And Lassie was trained by Rudd Weatherwax. And that name always stuck in my head because it's such an unusual name. Mm-hmm. So R. Riddell Weatherwax is Rudd Weatherwax's grandson?
Grandson, yes.
Okay. So they've trained the various lassies because it wasn't all just one lassie. And the value of a mutt, as the foreword is entitled, talks about why people should save a life by adopting rather than buying a dog from someplace. And he states that 70% of the dogs that they have trained for TV and movies, 70% of those dogs have come from local animal shelters or rescues. And I think that is very interesting because, for a number of reasons, it goes to show that these dogs in shelters and rescues, they're not there because they're broken somehow or they're, you can't place them. They're highly placeable. They're highly, I can't think of the word I'm looking for here, but they are not there because they're broken and have no place else to go. It's not like Misfit Island, in Rudolph. It's not like that. And I will also say this. I used to know the percentage of this. I want to say it's about 30%. Don't quote me on the percentage, but it's around 30% of dogs that you will find in shelters and rescues are purebreds. I've got a Dalmatian who is a purebred Dalmatian with papers, and she came from a Dalmatian rescue. Mm-hmm. So, it just goes to show. And there are rescues like what New Paws was, where they take in all kinds of dogs. And then there are breed-specific rescues. So if you're looking for a specific breed, you can look for it. But, 70% of all their dogs coming from rescues and shelters.
I love what he said. He was the trainer for Einstein in Back to the Future. And they trained Asta in The Thin Man. I mean, they trained Toto. So this is Hollywood legacy. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that he wrote the foreword. That was such an honor. But he said, they're not bad dogs. They're dogs in bad situations. And I think that is so important to realize. They're just dogs in bad situations. Mm-hmm. And he ended it, one part of it, by saying, the next time you're looking for a dog, think with your heart and not your pocketbook. Think with your heart.
Yes.
He said, we've never bought a dog. And what was interesting, he said, the reason that Hollywood paints all Americans as having purebreds is because you can do stunt doubles with purebreds.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Okay, you can take a collie and make it look like a collie. But if you've cast a mutt that's unique, one of a kind, that's harder to film.
Yes.
And I thought that made a lot of sense too.
It does.
We share a friend, his editor for his book, which is featured on my website, and it's Training Your Dog the Weatherwax Way.
The Weatherwax
is a friend of mine. And so when Nick heard I was writing the book, he goes, I got a guy for you to meet.
So, because that's
So
interesting,
that's
because
how
I was going to ask you how you connected up
So
with
we connect-
someone from the Weatherwax family.
So I used to teach at writers' conferences all over the country, and Nick Harrison was an editor, and we'd meet and chat, and we became friends and found each other on Facebook. And so when I announced I was doing this, he said, "I just finished Bob's book. I just finished editing it. You need to talk with him." So we traded emails back and forth, and there we go. So,
Interesting.
Isn't that fun?
Yes, it is. So, gosh, I've already covered some of the things that that I had here. So, okay. So, in chapter 1, the story entitled "The Power of Love," it's only about 1 3/4 pages long, but it packs such a powerful message in relatively few words. Number 1, it talks about dogs and how even when afflicted with one or more diseases or some kind of health condition, they miraculously learn to adjust. And I think that's such an important lesson. We had a dog like that one time. You know, he had been, I think, hit by a car, and the legs were never set properly. So both of his front legs were kind of turned in, and he was very bow-legged. Something had been going on with his ears, and he had huge hematomas, you know. And when he was finally captured and put into a shelter and then ultimately rescued, while he was in the shelter, he just freaked out being in a dog run and bars and everything. And he chewed on those bars until his front teeth were chewed right down to the nubs. And I'll tell you, this dog, he taught me something about perseverance when you're not feeling well or you've got something going on, because that dog, he never let anything stop him. He would hobble through the yard as fast as he could, sometimes faster than the other two, certainly faster than I could move. And, you know, he just had so much love to give. And yet, to look at him, he was messed up, you know. So, I mean, I think that that's an important lesson that we can learn from dogs.
And Ashley, who that dog that we're talking about, the second dog she got, was from New PAWSibilities.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
That's very
so that
cool.
was really cool. Yeah.
Well, another lesson packed into that, you know, that story is the fact that, and I hear this all the time from people, because as you know, I volunteer with a number of rescues, and one of my jobs is doing home visits for people who are looking to adopt dogs. And I hear so often from people, well, that's great that you're doing that, but it was too tough either having a dog die or having to make that decision to put them down. And they say, I'm not going to go through that again. I can't go through that again. And I feel, and this is just me, but I always say to them, look, don't say never. And that's one of the premises of your book, is to never say never. And I said, please don't ever say never, because I think, personally, the greatest tribute or honor that you can pay to your deceased dog or dogs is to save another dog's life. They would want you to do that, because at one point you saved them.
And that's a reoccurring theme in these stories.
Yes.
And what's interesting is I put the call out for stories. I hadn't written a word. I hadn't plotted anything. I didn't look at any of the stories until the deadline. I used all but 3 submissions.
Wow.
And the reason I didn't do the 3 is they didn't answer my email when I wanted more details.
Oh, okay.
But I had everything I needed. Everything. I didn't have to go search for anything, which I find that this book was meant to be.
Yeah.
And it was meant to be this book with these stories, exactly. And so it was a really fun book to write. But that there are people, and there is a story about my brother-in-law's dog, Pepsi. And when we went to visit him, we brought Coconut, and he said, I can never have a dog again. I can't go through the pain of ever losing a dog. But what was interesting in that story is I didn't know Pepsi. And they live in Michigan, and we took a road trip. And I did not know the depth of his love. And he told me, but he really liked Coconut. And we took him out. I took Coconut out for a walk one morning, and he doesn't have great recall. And they live on a busy area, even though it's an acre. So we're on the leash, walking, and all of a sudden, he's running, about dragging my arm off, and he knows where he's going. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And he finally gets to his destination, which is now a big tree. And down he goes. His paws like that. And there was a marker for Pepsi. He knew Pepsi was buried there. Because bones take forever.
Yeah.
The smell. And when you think about search and rescue dogs, what they're able to do.
Yes.
Every dog has that smell. He knew. And he found and he paid tribute to his fallen brother.
Isn't that
Isn't that amazing?
And he'd never met him, right?
He'd never met him. I never met the dog.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was buried on the property with a marker.
Isn't that something?
So you are, we are feeling the same way. But I also honor the people who just say, I can't.
I do
them,
too. I get it.
accept it. It's just not my way.
Right.
And
well,
I did say, Dan, can I use the story? And he said, yes, but I'm not going to read it. I said, that's okay. You can flip over. It's on this page. So
yeah. Well, you're right, Carmen. I mean, I respect those people who say I can't do it. You know, I can't do it. But I think, yes, it's very painful. Whether they pass on their own, whether you have to make that horrible decision, but that selfless decision to, when their quality of life is gone, to let them go to a better place, cross that rainbow bridge. You can tell it's been a long week for me. Maybe there's a ridge somewhere in there, I don't know, but they cross the rainbow bridge. And, but you're also cheating yourself out of so many happy memories.
You really are.
If you think back to all the memories that you shared with said dog A or B or whoever, you're cheating yourself out of those memories too. So, and then it's funny. I did a home visit one time for someone, and I said, well, so you have a dog right now? And she said, well, until tomorrow. And I said, what's happening tomorrow? And she said, I'm having to put my dog down. She said, but I cannot, I live by myself. I cannot live in a house without a dog. And, the day after she put her dog down, she had another dog. And so, everybody grieves in different ways. Everybody treats those situations in different ways.
We saw that so often at the rescue.
Yeah.
Just the vast number of people that said, I got to do it now. And it's funny because we were talking, my husband had knee surgery, and his other knee, he's having surgery, 6 weeks apart. But people say, I will never have it again. I don't want to go through that pain. I go, so you're going to suffer your whole life with a bad knee and limit everything.
Yeah.
And they go, I won't. And that's like a dog.
Yeah.
You're going to close the door to hope and love and all the opportunities to make new memories. But it's your life. And yeah.
Absolutely. One of the quotes in each chapter, each story within each chapter every little story starts with a quote from some famous person. And one of the quotes came from a gentleman named John Grogan. I don't think I'm familiar with this gentleman. I have no idea who he is.
He writes about dogs.
Oh, okay. But he writes, quote, such short little lives our pets have to spend with us, and they spend most of it waiting for us to come home each day. And how true that is, because I'm not gone from home a lot, but I often wonder, do dogs have, do they have a sense of time? And what are they thinking when we're gone? Where are they? When are they coming back home? I see my dogs in the window as I'm driving out of the driveway and going down the street, and I can see that when I've turned almost out of sight, I look back and I can see that they've gone.
I've wondered the same thing, and they've had on YouTube, you'll see video cams where people set up, they see, what is my dog doing?
Yes.
And they're usually sleeping. which,
They are.
which
Yeah,
brings me lots of comfort.
They are, and I check in on mine with cameras too.
Yeah, and they're usually sleepy.
Yep.
And I've often wondered that. But what I love about dogs, you can be gone 5 minutes. You can be gone 5 hours. And when you walk in, you're like a T-bone steak.
Yep.
I miss you, I miss you, miss you, love you,
That
love you.
greeting is the same
It
no
is
matter
the
what.
same. But what I learned last week, I heard a study. The reason your dog knows, we say, oh, you know how to tell time. You're always there when I'm there. It's because they smell. They can smell you.
Yes.
And the change. So as you're getting closer, they know you're almost there, which I never thought about.
Well, I know that they have a tremendous sense of smell, but I didn't realize, I
Yeah.
guess, that they could smell. You're in a car, after
Yes.
all. You're in a car.
Yes, they can,
You're
yeah.
probably, this time of year, you're bundled up in stuff.
It was interesting.
So that's-
it was on the news a couple weeks ago, and so they can't really tell time, but they can tell when you're coming.
And that scent obviously wakes them up from their sleep.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I check in on mine with cameras when I am gone, and I can see that sometimes they're up looking out the window or whatever, barking at whoever might be dropping off, delivering a package or whatever. But it is interesting, and you're so correct that the greeting. There are times I come back in the house. I mean, I don't do a lot of shoveling, but I have shoveled a little bit this year, and they greet me the same way when I come in from shoveling.
I know.
And it's like, dogs, I've not even left the property.
I know, but boy, when you've had that rough day,
Yeah.
and that dog treats you like you are their whole world.
Yeah.
You are their whole world.
There's a story that someone wrote, and it's entitled "Home is My Dog." And basically, it talks about, dogs, it doesn't have to be a puppy. An older dog can be destructive as well. And, a dog may tear things apart, they might chew things up, whatever the case may be. But, as people, we're not perfect either.
Mm-hmm.
And, nobody just abandons us. I would hope not anyway. And so we shouldn't abandon a dog and return it just because it's got some problems. Let's figure out what's going on. Is it health related? Is it they're remembering situations that they've come from? And a classic example is one of my dogs, every time we'd go for a ride in the car, she would start panting, she would start drooling, and then she would throw up. Well, that's understandable because she came from a bad situation where she and her 3 litter mates had been tossed over a barbed wire fence in Alabama. There was nothing around for shelter, nothing around to eat other than, what they could catch. They couldn't get to roadkill because they were on the other side of a fence. But I shudder to think what they were, eating and so forth. I can hear somebody vacuuming somewhere. I don't know what's going on, but it's getting very loud. So forgive that if you hear the vacuuming. So we've been, I've been working with her slowly on that. I think I'd probably get sick in a car if somebody had tossed me out of one
I
either.
think I would.
Is she also, because they were trying to get whatever they could to eat, she's a resource guarder. She guards her food. And if the other 2 dogs come near her, she's going to snarl. And we have had a couple of dog fights, more than a couple. We've had a number of them. And now we've got it figured out how best to do it so that we're not going to have those dog fights over food.
Right.
But she's guarding her food. And that, too, goes back to her situation.
Yeah,
So we just have to think about these things and figure out ways to work through them rather than returning a dog.
And that's why, one thing I really appreciated about New Possibilities is we were open 7 days a week and we had a staff that was there. And we could talk through those situations and get people to not return. That happened a lot. Jim can't believe I didn't return Coconut.
Jim was the owner.
The owner. He could not believe, because the first night, I wasn't planning on getting a dog that day. Gary was working that evening, and I had tickets to a play at the Grand. And I'm thinking, how bad can it be? What could happen? I have a wood floor. I'll clean up poop. Not a big deal. Who leaves a rescue dog the first night not in a kennel? Me. Me. I came back. Oh, the poop was the least of my worries. We had negotiated silk drapes for the 106-inch drapes in our living room, and they are now gone. The curtains upstairs, gone. The shades, gone. He got into the pantry, knocked over the shelf, ate macadamia nuts, which are poisonous to dogs, ate tortillas. And then he couldn't walk. He literally could not walk. We think he fell down the stairs. And we ended up the next day at the Appleton Emergency Clinic, and we all know what that cost.
Yes.
Yes, and it was a horrible experience, but I said...
So they had to do surgery then?
No, he had a sprain.
Oh.
Could have given him baby aspirin, it would have been okay, but I didn't know.
Well, I was thinking surgery because of everything that he had chewed up and so forth.
I think he was a runner. I think he was used to eating garbage, so, you know, they're kind of indestructible when they're those kind of dogs. But I said if he can't stand, he can't poop. And if he doesn't poop, we got a blockage. We got a problem. So in the end, it was a very expensive, about $3,500 by the time we factored in the vet, the curtains.
I hope the performance at the Grand was worth it.
No, it was not. And we're not going to talk about that play. It's the worst I ever saw. So,
Okay.
But, you know, my whole point is when I called the next day, he said, I could hear it in his voice now, all right, when do you want to come bring the dog back? And I said, why would I bring the dog back? I just need to know what to do. I don't know anything about dogs. I'm not going to bring a dog back. He's not the problem, I am. Because I was stupid enough to do this.
We don't think.
And I love the fact that every step of the way, when I said, you know, he had kennel cough. I didn't know what that was. And at night, when he lay down, I thought he was going to die. And they said, well, get a harness instead of a collar. Because the collar's pulling and is bruising the trachea. I said, he's eating so fast, I think he's going to choke to death. Well, he was probably a stray. Yeah. He fought for food. Get a Kong, put the food in, let him slow it down.
Or a treat ball where you can put the food in there and they have to roll it to get it out.
He had something like that. So he said, every step of the way there is a way to handle it. You just have to learn.
Yes,
you
and
just have to learn.
We are blessed in this area.
Oh my gosh.
With wonderful trainers or behaviorists. The words are interchangeable, but they do the same work.
Yeah.
And you know, it is as much about training us as it is training the dog.
Oh, it's more about training us. And
yeah,
I did.
I think so in some cases.
I did after about a month. I finally was able to, you know, you can't get your dog into training the next day.
Right.
I mean, you can try and plan it. It took about a month. And I went to a wonderful trainer here in Oshkosh. And it was 6 weeks. We went in. And it was all about me. Really, it was all about training me.
We can really screw a dog up badly by things that we say or do, or things that we don't say or don't do. And so it is about us.
It really
like
is.
It is.
And I am so grateful. That's where I got my dog. I'm grateful that I had a listening ear. I'm grateful that I found, through his referral, a great trainer. And I'm grateful that I got the dog. I got the perfect dog for me. Maybe it wasn't perfect for someone else, but right dog at the right time. Yeah. And that's just so important.
I cannot believe that we're down to about 18 minutes.
Oh my
gosh. Have left. Can you believe that?
You're so much fun.
Well, as are you. So again, if you're just joining us, my guest is Carmen Leal, and her book is I Chose You, and it is a collection of stories from people who have rescued dogs from animal shelters or rescues. There are some facts and figures that you present at the beginning of page 2 that I found fascinating, and these are from 2021, so a year or so old. But according to the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, approximately 3.3 million dogs enter shelters every year. Of that 3.3 million, roughly 620,000 stray dogs are reunited with their owners. 48% of the rest are adopted, and 20% of 3.3 million are euthanized. And that's disgusting. We have got to do better in this country.
And we are doing worse. The numbers, and there's so many reasons. The economy is
I know,
Oh.
I know, but
There's so many reasons, and we have to do better. Wisconsin doesn't have a major stray dog problem, at least
Right.
this area. And I applaud rescues who dig into their own pockets, create a dream, and say, we're going to do a transport, we're going to go get dogs, or we're going to have someone bring us dogs. So that people like me can have a dog, have ready access. Because I didn't know that dogs are kind of hard to find, and that there is a competition to get a dog. And there shouldn't be.
Yeah,
There should not be.
And New Paws brought all of their dogs from Kentucky.
Right.
And, one of the rescues that I work with brings a lot of their dogs. It used to be all of their dogs from Alabama, which is where two of mine came from. But now now we're getting some dogs from Wisconsin here who have been dogs that have been used as breeder dogs. Some from the Amish, and it's not uncommon for Amish, if they can't find a home for the dog or it's just not useful to them. Not all Amish do it, so please don't write me hate letters and all that kind of crap. But it is not uncommon for a lot of Amish to just take the dogs out behind the barn and just shoot them, and that's it. So, we're getting a lot of these breeding dogs in from the Amish and other situations. But again, these dogs can be trained, they can be taught to be outstanding dogs. Sometimes it just takes a little more patience.
Yep, and they're
And
resilient.
if we are patient with our children, and Lord knows, I don't have any, but Lord knows, I've talked to enough of my friends that, wow, I'm so glad that I don't have kids.
Absolutely.
You
At this stage, I'm so glad I have a dog and not kids.
Yeah. And so, you don't give up your children when they're causing all kinds of problems and getting into trouble if they do. And you should not give up on a dog. At least try every avenue to fix whatever the problem might be, because somewhere along the line, that dog developed a habit or a behavior because of what it had experienced. And so we should not give up on dogs. But I just think that's such a disgusting
It is.
number.
It's horrifying. It is absolutely horrifying.
And they do not, and why so many dogs are coming up from the South, and you know this, is because they don't promote spay neuter in the South. And so they just have this abundance of dogs and cats, and oh well.
And then they also don't microchip. So, when in the book, towards the end, I say I can just think of Coconut's previous family with Facebook, my dog is lost, posters, wondering where my dog is. And I say, I wish I could tell them he wasn't running away from you, he was running to me. Mm-hmm. But he escaped. He was definitely a runner. And I think that's what happened. But when you get in those hollows way out and you do not have a microchip and there's no way to reunite the dog with their family.
Yes.
So he wasn't a bad dog because he could sit, he could eat from my hand, he could come when called. I mean, those are pretty cool things.
Yes,
that first
absolutely.
day.
Yeah.
So it led me, I know he was owned. So the lack of spay neuter, some areas like where we have the dogs in Kentucky, we only had one vet there. There is a brain drain. And when you've got these poverty-ridden places and you get the best and the brightest get out and they go to med school, they go to vet school, they don't come back.
Yeah.
And so part of it is the lack of financial resources to pay for it. Part of it is not promoting it, but part of it is you can promote all you want. If there's no vet, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And we see a lot of that. And so the inequities that plague our country, they follow us even with our dogs. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. I don't see a lot of wicked people doing horrible things.
Right, right.
There are people who they're poor, or they're misdirected their money, or they got evicted, there's all kind of reasons. Mm-hmm. But we need to do better, and I am so appreciative of every rescue, every shelter, every foster person that has anywhere in this chain. And that book really is, I dedicated the book to my doctor, but it really is also dedicated to all those multitude of people who selflessly give of their money, of their time, of their energy to save a dog that they'll never see again.
Right.
You know,
Or maybe has never seen. You would not. Well, you.
Oh, yes, I would.
You would believe.
Yes, I would.
Because I would say that 99.9% of the dogs that I do home visits for, I've never met the dog, and I never will meet the dog.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I see the pictures that are on the websites. I frequently will get pictures from people who have adopted dogs. They'll send me pictures showing me how the dog is doing and so forth, and I'm eternally grateful for that. But I've never met these dogs.
Yeah, even me,
So-
you know, I wrote all the bios, and people would say, "Oh my, you nailed it! How much time must you spend?" And I'm like, I don't know this dog.
Yeah.
I'm writing it from a picture and common sense.
Yeah.
And the reason why you say I nailed it is because I never make a promise the dog can't keep.
Mm-hmm.
I will never say he's crate trained. I will never say he walks on a leash. I will never say anything because we don't know these dogs. They
Right.
come in and out so fast. So if I don't make a promise the dog can't keep, but I talk about personality of the breed, I talk about what you can see, the pictures, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm going to jump ahead here because
There's so much.
I know there is. So toward the end of the book, you give readers the top 6 items, or top 6 reasons to adopt a rescue dog. And I don't think we have time to really discuss each one of them, but I'll say what they are, and then you can briefly just add something if you want. So the number 1 is you'll save a life. Number 2, you'll get a wonderful dog. Number 3, it will cost you less. And that's it. It will cost you less.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, it's a tangible way to fight puppy mills. So true. Number 5, it's an easier and less expensive transition. And number 6, it's great for your health. So why don't we just talk briefly about what you're saying here?
Well, I think they speak for themselves. And the only one that I really want to speak to is that first one. You're not only going to save a life, you're emptying a crate, a kennel, to be able to bring another dog in.
Yes.
So you're not just saving that dog's life, you're saving someone else's. And then in this book, in the chapter about undesirable dogs, which I hate that term, I talk about Rusty and Pepper. Mm-hmm. And they were there, Rusty was there for 2 years, and Pepper was there for 18 months. That meant that for those 36 combined months, we didn't get to bring in how many dogs, how many dogs died, or how many dogs opportunities lost. We placed them. We never gave up. They were both super high energy.
Yes.
But we found them a home.
Yeah.
But look, if we would have found them a home sooner, the number of other dogs that we would have had space. Because we can't cram the dogs. First of all, the Department of Health will shut you down if you're over capacity.
Yes.
But how can you feed them? How can you love them? How can you take care of them? And so when you save a dog, you started that chain of all the dogs who are taking that dog's place.
Right.
That's what I want to
say. And
say.
I want to talk, kind of use that as a jumping point for this point that I want to make. And I've made this point other times on this show over the years. There are different kinds of breeders, okay? There are the professional breeders, and we have to have them because otherwise lines of dogs are going to go extinct. So you got to have professional breeders, but they're the ones who do it right. They make you sign a contract. They want to know, they'll call references. They'll check up on you. If you can't keep the dog for whatever reason, they want the dog back. Those are professional, responsible breeders. Then you've got the worst of the worst, which is the puppy mill breeders, and they should just, all over this country, they need to be shut down, and we need to stop puppy mills from continuing to breed. And so, but they're going to continue to have a business if people continue to buy from pet stores, which most pet stores don't sell dogs anymore, and thank God for that. But we still have a huge puppy mill problem. And in between those two are what I call backyard breeders or hobby breeders. And they're the people who think, oh, wouldn't it be nice to just have a litter or two, let the kids see the miracle of birth. Well, go on the internet and you can see miracles of all kinds of births. You don't need to, have it live in person in your home. And I've known a few people who have done this, and I say, why are you doing this? You know, because if you're doing it right, you're not going to make any money. That's the first thing. And the response to me is always, well, I'm finding homes for these dogs. I said, no, you are taking homes away from dogs that are already here, and shame on you. Shame on you.
No, we're on the same page with that.
So that needs to stop also. So I can't say that enough. All right, I want to get to the song that we promised. It's called "Love Is Just a Wag Away." It was written by a friend of yours, Steve Seiler of Music for the Soul, and his close friend of nearly 3 decades, Scott Crepane. I wasn't sure how I was going to pronounce that name. So tell us a little bit about the song and how it fits in with the book.
So I've known Steve for many years. I wrote a series of books on Psalm 23, and he wrote a song called 23. And I heard it on the radio as I was driving years ago, and I pulled to the side, and I called the studio and got his contact information, and he's so accessible. He answered the phone, and I said, I have a book, you have a song, let's do something together, and a friendship was born. And I knew he was a dog lover. So this song was actually written so we could do a series of videos for New Possibilities, for YouTube or whatever, because I don't want to steal anyone's music. And I called him, but I said, I need a song. And he wrote the song Zoom. And the reason it's Love Is Just a Wag Away is when I took over the marketing for New Paws and I rebranded them, that was the tagline, Love Is Just a Wag Away. And so, as your viewers know, we don't have a shelter, but I have a song.
Yes.
And I haven't used it yet. I have an idea how we're going to use this song because it is such a fun song.
It is. I've listened to it a couple of times.
And there is a QR code that everybody who gets the book can download that song for free. And Steve was so great because he gave me the song. I didn't know. And when he said, you know, on this day you're going to get this song, and I listened to it, and he says, what you don't know is Scotty and I decided we're going to give you the publishing rights. So I did Wagaway Publishing LLC so I could join ASCAP, and I have a catalog of one. And then from there, it became the publishing company for the book. So for your viewers, you don't need to set up a whole publishing company to write a book. You don't need that.
Right.
But I did it really for that song, and it's coming soon, what we're going to do with the song. I won't let it out of the bag, but there's some fun things happening.
Everything dovetails together.
It does.
And, you know, it's like a puzzle where you've got all the pieces, you're just not sure how they're going to fit together, you know.
Or when are you going to find that white edge to make that puzzle complete? And you're exactly right. That's what our lives are.
Yeah. That
is definitely what this book is. And I hope, you know, selling the book is fine, and you can get it on Amazon and all that. But I want people, when they read it, to take it into their heart and take those messages. And I want people to feel healed and have hope and be happy. It's a tough world right now.
It is.
It's a tough world. And if I can use my words to do a message of hope to a broken and hurting world, that's why it took, I guess, 10 years. But that's why I did it. And I'm, well, how much time do we have left?
Probably about 10 minutes.
Okay. So,
I think.
So.
Oh, no, I'm wrong. We have about 4.
Okay. That's enough time. Because I want my part of this, if you can hand that book, and you would think I would have memorized it, but I haven't. I want to read the very beginning.
Okay, go ahead.
After the forward.
All right.
My life is full of never statements. I will never kiss a boy. I will never get married. I will never forgive him for what he did. I will never get married again. Or again. I will never live in the Midwest again. I will never own a dog. I will never, ever write another book. When a person says he or she will never do something again, someone typically chimes in with the idiom, never say never. Maybe people are prone to changing their minds. I think more often than not, in the course of living, things happen. It could be the choices we make or the actions of others that put us on a radically different path than we planned. And those never statements come back to laugh in our faces. This is a book about dogs, about never saying never, life happening, and dogs. It's mostly about dogs, but it's also a book of stories rooted in my life and my journey to this weird place of being married, living in the Midwest, having a dog, writing about thousands more dogs, and somehow being mostly okay with never somehow becoming forever. That's what this book is.
And
that's
it is
what
so
our
true.
lives are.
Yep.
And we can say never, but then life does happen. And at the end, it happened exactly as it should have happened.
Yes.
Despite all of the heartache,
Yeah.
despite all the lost opportunities. And I believe the dogs play a huge role.
And who knew that when you rebranded the rescue, New PAWSibilities, with the tagline, love is just a wag away, that would eventually spin off into all this other stuff. A publishing company. The first in a series of probably
I think
more
three.
dog books.
Three.
Three, you think
That's the
it'll be?
plan.
Okay.
That's the plan. We'll
So
see.
we've got one, you're working on two, and you know, your life is always so full and you always amaze me. And I know that we just touched on a few of the stories in here, but they are all wonderful. And the whole book, as a book, as a whole, it sends a message, but so does each single story that's in each chapter, and it's wonderful. And you know, I specifically didn't want to talk about every chapter in the book because we wouldn't have time.
Oh, well, we'd have to
We wouldn't have time, but also I didn't want to deprive anyone from reading this gem for themselves. And I highly recommend it. It's, you know, it's reasonably priced at $17, and like you said, you can get it on Amazon. People can reach you through your
right
website and everything.
now, it is carried at You Bloom Florist over on Wisc. He's carrying, he's stocking it in permanently, and we are going to be doing a huge fundraising effort in the whole month of April. And so it'll kick off at You Bloom, and together we are merging to be able to raise some funds to sponsor rescues and specific dogs. And I was really tired of December.
More details to come on
More
that.
details to come, and So
Okay, so I think that's about it for our readers. For our viewers. You know, we've been having the website addresses up throughout the show. For those listening on radio, I do want to give you the website information. Carmen's website is CARMEN, and then her last name, LEAL. So CARMENLEAL.com. And then the publishing website is wagawaypublishing.com. And you can also find Carmen on Facebook under Rescue More Dogs. We're just about out of time, but thank you for doing this.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
I just want to say a couple of things here in closing. Our deepest and most sincere sympathies to our directors and his wife and their family. Daryl's father-in-law unexpectedly passed away this morning, and like the trooper that he is here tonight working and helping to bring you this show. So thank you, Daryl, and our deepest sympathies to you and Darcy and her entire family. And that will do it for us. We will see you next time. Until then, take good care and keep safe and love one another, and we will see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.